Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We're sorry that we had to postpone yesterday, unfortunately, due to some internet outages in the Bay Area, but happy that you guys could tune in today. So my name is Allison Barcelone, and I'm the Communications Associate for SPARC. And today we'll also hear from Beatriz Aurelio, our Program Manager, and Cassie Park, our Program Associate. And another key member of our team who unfortunately is not on this call today is our Executive Director, Ron Blue. So moving on to some housekeeping things. This webinar is being recorded and we'll send it out later this week to everyone who registered. And if you have any questions, please send them in the chat box and we'll answer them at the end of the webinar. So SPARC is part of APPEAL, Asian Pacific Partners for Empowerment, Advocacy, and Leadership. And APPEAL consists of our California State Program, with SPARC, and our national program, ASPIRE. And we have partners across the United States and Guam, as you can see highlighted in blue on the map here. And since our inception 25 years ago, we've trained over 1,400 community leaders. So SPARC, today's webinar is hosted through our SPARC program. As the California Statewide Coordinating Center for Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, we develop an enabling system to support AANHPI tobacco control activities, create educational materials, provide annual leadership opportunities, and also provide strategic planning and a tobacco control policy platform. And you can head to our website at sparcapi.org if you want to learn more about these specific things. We also have 4 regional projects in Los Angeles, South Coast, the Central Valley, and the Bay Area, and they all work on a variety of tobacco control policies in their communities. We also have an advisory committee that provides guidance and advice for our activities, and so their names are listed here. Today, we'll address 4 main topics, including who are AANHPIs, types of tobacco products, marketing of tobacco products in AANHPI communities, and then also what we can do. So we'll start this webinar today by discussing who are Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders. And with that, I'm going to pass it on to Beatriz.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders together represent a diverse group of people from over 50 countries and speak more than 100 languages. So you can see on this map, Asian Americans are part of a large umbrella of cultures, religions, and traditions. Again, in this map, you can see that there are different identities between Asian American groups in the continent of Asia. Asian Americans include Eastern Asia, like countries like Japan, China, Korea, Taiwan, and Mongolia. South Asians also include countries like India, Pakistan. Western Asia includes parts of the Middle East, and Southeast Asia includes countries such as Philippines, Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia, Malaysia, Laos, and Cambodia. It is important to recognize when working with Asian Americans the model minority myth. The model minority myth is a myth where Asians are referred to as a group that hold less disparities than any other minority group, something that is completely false. Many times what is not realized is that data is often skewed because of the large population surveyed, and cultural factors are not included in this data. Just by looking at this map, you could see the large diversity and variety of groups found under the umbrella of Asian American population. This is why we need to dispel things like the model minority myth through data disaggregation to tease out the different disparities within the groups. Not only does this umbrella include a variety of cultures, traditions, and religions, but it also includes a variety of migration patterns. Migration has played a large role within the Asian American community. Throughout their history, Asian Americans have confronted a long legacy of exclusion and inequality in relation to school policies and practices, particularly during periods of change, demographics, economic recessions, or war. In spite of historic linguistic differences, distinct Asian nationalities have been grouped together and treated similarly in schools and in the larger society. In the 1850s, men were recruited as contract laborers from southern China. Asian immigrants have played a vital role in the development of this country. Working as miners, railroad builders, farmers, factory workers, and fishermen, the Chinese represented 20% of California's labor force by 1870, even though they constituted only 0.02% of the entire United States population. In 1882, Congress passed the Chinese Exclusion Act, the only United States law to prevent immigration and naturalization on the basis of race, which restricted Chinese immigration for the next 60 years. By 1885, following the Chinese Exclusion Act, large numbers of young Japanese laborers, together with smaller numbers of Koreans and Indians, began arriving on the West Coast, where they replaced the Chinese as cheap labor in building railroads, farming, and fishing. In 1907, Chinese immigration was restricted by a gentleman's agreement between the United States and Japan. Small numbers of Korean immigrants came to Hawaii and then the mainland United States following the 1904 to 1905 Russo-Japanese War and the Japanese occupation of Korea. South Asian immigrants also entered the United States as laborers following the Chinese Exclusion Act. Recruited initially by the Canadian Pacific Railroad companies, a few thousand Sikh immigrants from the Punjabi region immigrated to Canada, which, like India, was part of the British Empire. Later, many migrated into the Pacific Northwest and California and became farm laborers. Ironically, decried as a Hindu invasion by exclusionists and white labor unions, the tide of the turbans is what they were called, and it was outlawed in 1917, when Congress declared that India was part of the Pacific Barred Zone of excluded Asian countries. With all other Asians excluded, thousands of single Filipinos began migrating in large numbers to the West Coast during the 1920s to work in farms and canneries, filling the continuous need for cheap labor. Filipinos were not legally excluded by the immigration laws because the Philippines was already annexed by the United States as a result of the 1898 Spanish-American War. Racism and economic competition, intensified by the Depression of 1929, however, led to severe anti-Filipino violence and passage of Tidings-McDuff's Act of 1935, which placed an annual quota of 50 on Filipino migration, effectively excluding their entry as well. During the half-century from 1882 to 1935, 3 waves of early Asian immigration continued their labor to the building of this country, but were eventually denied entry and not granted naturalization rights until 1952. Beginning in 1975, Southeast Asian refugees from Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos have entered the United States after escaping from war, social chaos, discrimination, and economic hardship. Roughly 1 million Southeast Asians, including about 30,000 American Asian children of American servicemen and their families, had entered the United States since then through a variety of refugee settlement and immigration programs. Next, Cassie is going to expand on Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander communities.
Hi everyone, so I'm going to be talking a little bit about Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islanders. So Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islanders represent the people of the Pacific, also referred to as Oceania or Pacifica. The Western definition defines Pacific Islanders as those with origins to Polynesia, Melanesia, and Micronesia. And I just want to be mindful here that these are terms that were not defined by the people of the Pacific, but that were placed upon them by the explorers during that time. These territories differ vastly in terms of culture, language, and even political status. Many of these countries, or many of these regions, are independent nations such as Tonga, New Zealand, and Fiji. But some territories are affiliated with the US and other countries, such as Hawaii, which is the 50th state of the United States. On this map below, you will also see US affiliated Pacific Islands, They consist of 3 United States territories that includes American Samoa, the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands, and Guam. There are also 3 independent countries in free association with the United States, and this is also known as the Compact of Free Association. This includes the Federated States of Micronesia, the Republic of the Marshall Islands, and the Republic of Palau. So now we have some information here from the U.S. Census. The focus on the Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander population is important because of the vast amount of cultures. They're not typically addressed in topics such as health. Many times in data collection, the Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander community is often lumped together, and the needs in these diverse communities fall under the umbrella term of Asian and Pacific Islander are not properly met. In the U.S., Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander populations encompass almost 19 million Americans who trace their heritage to more than 50 countries, speak more than 100 languages, and practice a wide range of religious beliefs and come from various cultural traditions. So next we have another slide from the Census Bureau depicting population growth from 2000 to 2010. As you can see, the Asian population was the fastest growing in the United States, followed by Hispanic or Latino communities, and also the Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander communities, making Asian Americans and Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islanders 2 of the fastest growing populations in the United States. So here's also a slide for the top 5 states of residence. These were estimates from the American Community Survey from 2000 to 2010. As you can see, for Asian Americans, a large percentage of the national population lives in California at approximately 32%. And for Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islanders, a large percentage of the national population lives in Hawaii, and followed by California. Today, there are over 6.6 million Asian Americans living in California alone, and they make up approximately 17% of the state's population. California also has one of the largest populations of Native Hawaiian Pacific Islanders, following Hawaii, with over 300,000 Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islanders currently residing in California. So now we're going to talk a little bit. Go ahead.
We are now going to discuss briefly the different types of tobacco products out there to help you become familiar with these products. So we're going to start with traditional tobacco. Traditional or ceremonial use occurs in a variety of ways depending upon region and tribe. It may be placed on the ground or burned in a dish, shell, pipe, or fire, as the smoke is believed to carry prayers to the Creator. Next, we have commercial tobacco. What is commercial tobacco? Commercial tobacco is manufactured by companies for recreational and habitual use in cigarettes, smokeless tobacco, pipe tobacco, cigars, hookahs, and other products. Commercial tobacco is mass-produced and sold for profit. It contains thousands of chemicals and produces over 7,000 chemical compounds when burned, many of which are carcinogenic that cause heart and other diseases and premature death. Nicotine is the primary addictive substance contained in commercial tobacco. So an example of commercial tobacco is combustible tobacco products. Combustible tobacco products is designed to be smoked, including cigarettes, cigars, cigarillos, little cigars, blunts, fetus or BDs. Those are small flavored filterless Indian cigarettes. Little cigars and cigarillos are often sold at lower price points. Like in this photo, you could see some of them are sold for 79 cents or 3 for 99 cents. Water pipes. Water pipes is the device in the photo, often referred to as hookah. Hookah and shisha are the flavored tobacco bricks included in a hookah session. So that's the like apple products here, as well as the different flavored fruit ones. Shisha and hookah are placed into the water pipe with coals. One hookah or shisha session is equivalent to 100 cigarettes. Hookah or shisha sessions can last several hours. Because these products are used with coals, there is a risk of high carbon monoxide inhalation during these hookah sessions. Another example is smokeless tobacco products, and this includes snuff, chew, and dissolvables. So you can see here on the left, they have little packets with the tobacco product in it, but they also have this spit-free dissolvable tobacco product here on the right called Stonewall. And then there are e-cigarettes and other ENDS devices. These are electronic and or battery-operated devices designed to deliver an inhaled dose of nicotine or other substances. Examples include electronic cigarettes, e-cigs, Juuls, electronic cigars, vaporizers, vape pens, and vape mods. ENDS does not include any device or medication approved by the government as a nicotine replacement therapy. So you could see here, there are 2 examples of vape juices that are targeted particularly for AANHPI communities. So there's one here called Ohana, and it has kind of that island background, and Ohana is a Hawaiian word, so it kind of is marketed to the Hawaiian community. And then here on the right, it's a little small. It's a purple masamam flavored vape product. So now Cassie is going to discuss a product that you may not all be familiar with.
Thank you, Bea. And so now I'm going to talk a little bit about Areca Nut, which is another form of smokeless tobacco product used in the AANHPI community. It's pictured on the left-hand side here. The Areca Nut is classified as a group 1 carcinogen for humans. It's often consumed throughout the Asia and Pacific as pan, betel nut, gutka, or buai in Papua New Guinea. Using betel nut alone causes oral cancer. Tobacco is sometimes added to pan or betel nut, which is consumed in South Asian countries and can greatly increase a person's risk of oral cancer. In Southeast Asia, the overall use of Areca Nut is 43.2% in Myanmar, 10.9% in Malaysia, and 4.9% in Cambodia. So now we're going to talk a little bit about tobacco use rates among Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islanders. The 3 leading causes of death among AANHPIs are cancer, heart disease, and stroke, all of which can be caused by cigarette smoking, making tobacco use the #1 cause of preventable deaths across the U.S. Here we have data from the 2014 National Health Survey. The survey found that nationally, about 17% of the adult U.S. population were current smokers, and after disaggregating the data, you can see that there are some differences between Pacific Islander subgroups, such as for Native Hawaiians, it's 18.2%. Pacific Islander total is 14.7%, and then Samoan population is about 16%. We also have data below from the 2014 Behavioral Risk Factor Surveillance System in Hawaii, showing the differences between current smokers statewide and Pacific Islanders.
Tobacco use rates among Asian Americans. So studies pulled together by the Loop has found that current use of cigarettes was most prevalent among Filipinos at 14%, and then Koreans 15%, Japanese at 19%. Current cigarette smoking was more prevalent in males versus females in all ethnic groups except for Chinese communities. Sex disparities in current cigarette smoking were most notable among Vietnamese and Asian Indians, with almost all male smokers. And then among Koreans, approximately 17-point difference in smoking prevalence between males and females. Preference for menthol cigarettes was slightly higher for Asian Americans and Native Hawaiians and Pacific Islander cigarette smokers overall at 39%, compared to non-Asian American and Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander smokers at 36%. Menthol cigarette use was particularly high for Filipinos and Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander cigarette smokers at 45% and 46%. And then ever use of smokeless tobacco was notably high among Japanese at 42%, and then 29% for Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander males.
And so here we have some data from the CDC. Recently, they pulled data from the 2014 to 2017 youth tobacco survey, and they found that ever use of any tobacco product among U.S. and middle and high school students was highest among Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander youth at 45%, followed by American Indian and Alaskan Native youth at 44%, and multiracial youth at 38%. Current use of any tobacco product was also high among Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander youth at 23%, followed again by American Indian Alaska Native youth at 21%, and multiracial youth at 16%. So now we're going to take you to the WHO, the World Health Organization interactive map on the prevalence of tobacco smoking by persons 15 years and older in 2015. So I'm just going to exit this for a brief moment here. We can show it to you. Still having some difficulties here. Okay, here we go. So as you can see here, we have all these different colors representing the percentage of the male population 15 years and older that are smokers or current smokers. And it's fairly high in Asian countries, highest in Indonesia at 76.2%, followed by Jordan at 70%, Kiribati at 63.9%, Sierra Leone. But this map was very telling in the rate across the world. It also shows you the percentage for a female population, and as you can see, it's drastically different from the male population, so less than 10% in these Asian countries. So it's also shows the importance of secondhand smoke, and if we can be mindful also of the populations, of the families of smokers. Here we go. So we're going to go back to this.
So let's take a look at the relationship between the tobacco industry and its international reach. This is important for us to address as organizations and community members working with the AANHPI community. The tobacco industry, like many industries, use their influence and find that once their influence starts to diminish in the developing world, where do they go to continue their exploits? To the international community, where they begin to do things like plant their tobacco roots, both figuratively and literally. So an example of that is Juul Labs, the e-cigarette pioneer grappling with negative publicity and government crackdown in the U.S., is setting its sights on Asia, home to half of the world's smokers. The San Francisco company in recent months has begun selling its vape devices in South Korea, Indonesia, and the Philippines, and it is looking into entering more markets in the region. Asia, with looser tobacco regulations and favorable tax treatments, as well as high cigarette sales volumes, has been a lucrative alternative for tobacco giants suffering from falling smoking rates and slowing growth opportunities in developed countries. A quote from Ken Bishop, Singapore-based regional head for Juul, said in an interview on August 22nd, was given the number of smokers, we view Asia as a high priority region for the company. What we see is that smokers are very interested in these products and the consumer demand is super high. A major battleground is South Korea with British America Tobacco and Japan Tobacco releasing high-tech devices this summer after Juul began selling its products there in May. South Korea was also one of the first markets Philip Morris chose when expanding IQOS sales in Asia beyond Japan. And local player KT&G Corporation also has a device similar to IQOS. By the end of the year, Juul expects to have nationwide distribution in convenience stores, according to Bishop. And IQOS is a new device. It's like a heat not burn device that a lot of tobacco control programs are kind of monitoring because they're starting to market and bring that over into the United States. So in 2016, over 5.5 trillion cigarettes were sold to more than 1 billion smokers worldwide. 61.4% of the volume of all cigarettes sold in the 5 largest cigarette consuming nations, which includes 4 different Asian countries, including China, Indonesia, Japan, and Philippines. The cigarette retail values in 2016 was $683.4 billion US dollars. So if you could see here on this graph, 2 of the Southeast Asian nations are included in the world's top 10 cigarette markets by volume. So Indonesia is at 316.1 million, and then the Philippines is 79.1 million, and then the number 1 consumer is China. And then if you look at the infographic on the left side, the number of point in sales in selected Southeast Asian nations, this is kind of the breakdown. 383 cigarette retailers per 10,000 smokers in Indonesia, 421 in the Philippines, and 815 in Thailand. So it is important to note that the results from tobacco industry documents from 1988 to 1995, when talking about the tobacco industry's marketing, it was found that the tobacco industry thought that the AAPI market was important due to population growth and geographic clustering. AAPIs had predisposition to smoking and increased consumer purchasing power, and there was a higher percentage of AAPI retail business owners. So we're going to kind of go into the marketing to AANHPI. So you can see here, the first image is Oriental Images in advertising in the early 1900s. Then in 1972, there's Benson and Hedges advertisements illustrating kind of like an islander vibe. And then Virginia Slims in 1999 with the geisha. Images relied heavily on Orientalism, including luxury and exoticism. Women in particular are shown in more of an erotic view in comparison to some of the Victorian femininity during times like in the 1900s. If you take a look at the Virginia Slims photo from 1999, it features a woman who's portrayed as a geisha. So the tobacco industry, through the tobacco industry documents, it was found that the tobacco industry saw Asian women, that Asian women did not smoke as much as men, and wanted to push out more marketing towards Asian women to increase their market research. So as soon as the documents were released, it was around the same timing as this geisha ad came out. And so the timing of this ad went along with the release of the master settlement agreement and things like that. And then here are some more examples. You can see in these slides, Virginia Slims, in both today and 2000, their ads play on chic looks and illustrates happiness in the way that the models are posed and their facial expressions. Camel in 2004 plays on the tropical vibes by using the themes like the umbrella and the grass skirts. So historically, the tobacco industry has had their hand in a lot of America's history. So just a few examples are these photos. So the first photo is a photo of Japanese Americans in internment camps during World War II in the United States. They're featured smoking as like a normal activity. Cigarettes were included in military rations, so it's no surprise that they were being distributed in internment camps during World War II. The second photo is Larry Itlong. He's one of the leaders of the Filipino farm workers movement that started in the Central Valley and was never seen without a cigar in photos. Cigar smoking and non-filtered cigarettes were seen as a masculine trait. And then the last photo is more recent. Rose Pack is seen here on the cover of San Francisco Magazine. She is known as a political advocate in San Francisco and consultant for the San Francisco Chamber of Commerce to Chinatown. One of her most famous traits is that she was known for heavy cigar smoking. So the popularity of Asian pop culture, like the rise of Korean pop music, also comes with glorified smoking among certain populations. So in the first photo, or first two photos, you can see Kim Jae-wook, a famous actor and model from a popular show called Coffee Prince, is seen here smoking. And then popular K-pop star Suga, or Young, as he's referred to in these two different names from the group BTS, is seen smoking in this photo. The second photo, in portraying Beth in Once We Were Warriors, Rena Owen and other characters are often seen smoking cigarettes as a coping mechanism throughout the film. The third photo, although Netflix decided to reduce smoking in its movies, there are many examples of stories still fueled with smoking. In the Netflix original Manic, Sonia Mizuno is never seen here without a cigarette in her hand or in her mouth. And Sonia plays a Japanese scientist in the movie, and smoking is portrayed as a stress reliever for her. And then the last photo is from a film called Lucky Grandma that features a grandmother living in New York who visits casinos. The movie describes the Lucky Grandma as gaining her luck from becoming a chain smoker who's looking for independence.
So what can SPARC do? To work against the tobacco's industry tactics in the AANHPI community, SPARC works on four main objectives. We develop an enabling system to support AANHPI tobacco control activities, create educational materials on tobacco control and policy change. We hold annual leadership summits and also create a strategic plan on tobacco control policy, and a tobacco control policy platform. And what can we all do? Number one would be get engaged in local advocacy efforts in your community. You can also sign up for our newsletter to stay up to date with current news and follow our fellows' activities. We just started we had our first leadership summit in June, and so our fellows are working on some projects in their different regions throughout California. You can also share this information from this webinar with your friends, relatives, and colleagues. And when sharing information with people that smoke, please be mindful that you are not shaming them. Research has found that smokers know and understand the risks associated with smoking, and the lack of culturally tailored language and culturally tailored and in-language cessation services makes it difficult for AA and HPI smokers who are considering or have attempted to quit. And being that family and social support are important across many subgroups, we might consider looking at cessation as a collective issue rather than an individual issue. Another thing we can all do is advocate for and use disaggregated data when possible, and also share your story. So, do you have any questions for us? If so, send them in the chat box and we'll start answering them right now.
We do have one question, actually. So someone posed this to all panelists and attendees as what would be some good counterpoints for people who say that hookah is cultural and should not be regulated?
For that, one interesting kind of fun fact, I guess, is that in countries like Turkey, United Arab Emirates, and other countries in that area, they are starting to tax for hookah because they are worried and find that it's a little bit more kind of like alcohol in their countries. So that's just a little fun fact.
If you all have any more questions, take a minute here to wait and see if anyone has anything to send in the chat box. Okay, so if there's no more questions, then we want to thank you all for joining us today. And as a reminder, we will be sending out the recording in case you missed anything. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. On the slide here is the email for Bea, our program manager, and then also our general email. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.